Super Bomberman 4, released back in 1996 for the Super Famicom. It's the fourth Super Bomberman game. How does it differ from the previous three? And is it as good or better? Let's find out. The story of this game is that after White Bomber and Black Bomber defeated Bugler in the previous game, they were on their way back in their spaceship and decided to take a little nap. 4 beams of light collide with their spaceship and send them back in time through a time warp to the prehistoric age. White Bomber comes across Great Bomber and the other 4 Bomber Kings, and they're on a plan sent from Bugler to capture Bomberman and his friends, and so it's his job to destroy the Bomber Kings and foil Bugler's plan. Something I forgot to mention in the previous review was that in the United States, we only got the first 2 Super Bomberman games. We never got 3, 4, or 5. And the reasoning for that is I'm not sure. I remember reading something somewhere that the localization office at Hudson Soft closed down, and that's why. But personally, I believe it's just so late in the console's lifespan and that the N64 was around the corner, and that's why they didn't bother. Even though these games are mostly in English, like 99%, there's only like 5% Japanese. I believe that's the reason. You'll travel across 4 worlds, and on the 5th world, there are no actual levels. You'll just be refighting the bosses. Kind of like Mega Man, how you like refight the bosses. So it's like that. So basically 4 real worlds with 7 levels each. And since you're traveling back in time, instead of the Ruies or the Louies, you'll get these dinosaurs and other creatures to ride on. I don't believe these dinosaur creatures have super abilities, just like the Louies or the Ruies. They might have like a certain button, but nothing that I used or came across. What's interesting though is you can find eggs for the specific creature you're riding. So say you got like a Stegosaurus, the little green dinosaur, you can pick up to 2 eggs to carry along with you. And so if you lose your dinosaur buddy, you can just hatch another one immediately. So I think that's pretty interesting. But you'll find like other eggs shaped like other creatures, and you can't pick those ones up unless you have that corresponding creature. So I think that's interesting, you know, so you could take like extra hits more than usual. You'll also come across some of your friends trapped in jail cells in these little boxes, and you can blow them up and free them. And so what they'll do is they'll walk around the map and try to kill enemies for you. You can blow your friend up that you save, but they won't die or anything, so you don't have to worry about that. But they'll just randomly walk across the screen and try to kill enemies for you, so that's pretty cool. Once you get to level 7 of each world, you'll fight one of the 4 Bomber Kings. And it's nothing like the 5 Dastroid Bomber fights from Super Bomberman 2. It's way more simpler than like the first phase. So like they don't really put up much of a fight in the first phase, but the second phase they will transform into like a big mech of sorts, and those fights are a lot more challenging than the previous 3 games fights put together, in my opinion. The second phase of these fights on here aren't super hard or anything, but they're a good challenge, and if you're not paying attention, you can easily get snuck up on and die. So you always gotta be paying attention for the second phase fights. If you had to compare the second phase fight on here, they're definitely the hardest fights in the series up to this point, for sure. Especially that cannonball boss. It's not really hard, but if you're not if you get too close or not paying attention, you can easily get blown up. The music on this game is so good. You'll hear remixes of Jammin' Jungle from Bomberman 94. You'll hear some tunes from Bomberman 93 remixed, and some original stuff. The soundtrack is so good, especially with the Super Nintendo sound font. I like it a lot. So good. The level design on here is pretty creative. Take, for instance, World 2, I believe, is the ninja level. You'll have these little springboard floors that are randomly placed, and they're invisible, so you won't even see it until you run up on it. And they'll like teleport you to a different part of the map. So that's pretty cool, but also kind of risky. Also, there's a level where you can like hop over these blocks, and like they're timed, so like every few seconds they'll change, so you'll be able to jump over it, and then you won't be able to jump over it, so it's pretty strategizing. And there's one where you can kick a bomb, and it'll go like race around the whole screen. That can be kind of risky, but very creative level design. I like it. As mentioned earlier, once you beat all 4 worlds, you'll go to World 5, and this is just like a boss gauntlet. So, World 5, Level 1, you'll fight the first Bomber King again, and then the level will be over. You'll take the teleporter out of there. World 2, you'll fight another one. World 3, World 4, and then World 5, I believe, you'll fight the final Bomber King, or the Great Bomber, I believe. And then after that, you fight the second phase bosses combined. So you'll fight the first second phase boss you fought in World 1, and then he'll transform into the World 2 second phase boss. And so once you beat all those 4 second phase bosses, you'll end up fighting the very final boss. And if you die at any point, you'll just respawn at the boss you died at, I believe. Or at least if you make it to the Bugler part, the final part of it. So you don't have to worry about fighting all those again. But yeah, these bosses aren't hard, but they're definitely harder than the previous 3 games' bosses, in my opinion. Nothing like crazy, but you know, still a good challenge. Once you defeat the final boss, White Bomber and Black Bomber get sent back to the time they were in originally and wake up from their nap like it never even happened. Is this the last that we will see of Bugler? Probably not. Overall, the whole game is a good, fair challenge. The bosses, like I said a couple times now, I feel are the hardest we've had up to this point. The second phase of them. They're not like die hard, you know, but they're definitely harder if you compare them to the previous game's second phases. And you'll come across like the heart item, which I only came across 1 throughout the whole game, but it's not a problem because you get tons of like those dinosaur buddies to ride on, and you can hatch a ton of them. You can carry multiple with you. So that's basically, in a sense, taking extra hits as well. So it kind of replaces the heart in a way. But in the previous game, I got like 9 lives super quickly and easy. On here, I don't remember how many lives I got. Maybe like 7. So, and I think they did that because there's a plethora of these dinosaur buddies to use. So it's a good fair challenge, but these bosses, you gotta be very careful because they will pull out all the stops to try to kill you. The second phases. Now, let's check out battle mode. The battle modes on here are in Japanese, so I can't read it. I did use the Google Translate app on my phone, and it said, I believe, Battle Royale mode, which is just like the traditional one. Maniac mode, which is, I think you just like customize it to how many items you want, like what items spawn in, how many. And then Champion mode. And I'm not sure how much different that is from Battle Royale mode, but I doubt it's too much of a difference. But you get like the animal buddies, the dinosaur creatures as eggs on here. Similar to Super Bomberman 3 where you had like the Ruies, Louies you could use in the battle mode. What's also interesting about the battle mode on here is if you have the power glove, you can pick up an opponent and throw them. And I think that's the most funniest thing ever. Like, there's like a stage where you can just like, there's a huge gap where you can just throw people into a cliff off of it. It's just the funniest stuff ever. I just love doing it. Like, you could just like not even like blow people up. You just toss them out. Like, it's hilarious. Lots of different maps to choose from with different hazards and gimmicks. There's a skeleton one that is just like icy, and there's like these little Lego bricks that make you walk slow when you travel across them. That map is pretty pretty crazy. But you know, if you want something casual, just play the traditional mode. This game's also 5-player, just like Super Bomberman 3, so if you have that multi-tab, you can use that. And you can also play as the Bomber Kings on here, or you could just use the same 5 color bombers, which is what I did. But yeah, lots of fun here. Instead of PK Bomber, they have a race car mini game. So, say you win a set of 3 matches, instead of PK Bomber, you'll do a race car mini game where you drive on a road, and then once you get to the finish line, there'll be like these little white lines in the road, and if you follow a certain path, it will lead you to a certain item, and that's how you get the item. Instead of like PK Bomber, you like kick it into the goal and see which one you get. So it's pretty unique on here. It's pretty cool. Overall, I love this game. So much fun. Great soundtrack. Very fun gameplay. Good challenge. Fair challenge. In my opinion, the hardest bosses we've had, if you compare them to the previous 3 Super Bomberman games, the second phases, they're not the hardest thing in the world, but they're definitely harder than the previous game's bosses. Amazing game. Definitely go play it. And I'll see you next time.